The Lumintop FW3A, or BLF FW3A, is an EDC style small form factor triple LED flashlight that the enthusiasts on the budget light forums designed and programmed during the past more than 2.5 years. It takes design inspiration from several higher end custom lights and brings it down to an economical price. BLF was able to get Lumintop to agree to manufacture these, and the rest is history. There have been a lot of reviews on this light so far, but here's mine. I purchased my original gray FW3A here, but I'm thankful for Banggood for sending me the FW3C copper variant that you see here, so I can show it off to my viewers here and tell you what I think. So here is the box that the light comes in. It's a nice brown cardboard box. It's got kind of a sleeve over it. Pretty limited information on the inside. Inside then you've got just a brown Lumintop box. Then you've got this important card, which I'll get into later, but all you need to know is you put the battery in from the head only. You've got a manual here in English and German. The light comes situated in here just like this, and you only get 2 accessories here, which is a couple extra O-rings and then a little spacer if you don't want to run the pocket clip. All right, today I've got my Lumintop FW3A, or my BLF FW3A, and the one I've got here is my copper light. This is running an SST20 LED, and this is in the 4000 Kelvin, and we can just bring it up, and as you saw there, it's ramping. And this gets down really, really low, but why don't we go all the way up? So this is top mode, but then I can burst to turbo 2800 lumens. Pretty amazing amount of light coming out of this thing, and it's a triple. It's hot. This is hot to the hand, but it's ramps down next to nothing. Still on. It goes up, goes down, and while I've got it here in front, this is the turbo glow gasket I've got installed. It's really cool. The glow in dark works really well. This happens to be the lava color. But this is running the Android firmware. It is on in the lowest position here, and I can just hold. Comes on, keeps going. Clicks at the top, just to let you know it's at the top brightness, and then you double click to go to the turbo mode, and then I can hold to come down. It's still on here. If I want to go up, I just press and hold. If I press stop, it's really intuitive, super easy to use. Now this is the FW3A I've got, and this is the original aluminum version. And this one is running the Cree XPL high LEDs 7A variant in warm white, and it's 3800 Kelvin. So this is considerably warmer when you look at it. And this one I've got in the stepped mode, so we can see it steps quickly. And on camera, this looks yellower than it is just because of the way I've got my white balance set, but it's still pretty yellow, and warm is the term we'd like to use for that. It also goes to the full 2800 lumens or thereabout. Being aluminum, this conducts heat nearly as well, so it still gets quite hot in this mode. We've got bugs coming, this thing's just that bright. Throw-wise, they're pretty similar. So on the left, I've got the warm white, and on the right here, this is the SST20, about 4000 Kelvin. Here is the warm white. Here is the SST20. Both a great amount of light, very similar, and both the UIs are great. You've got smooth ramping, or you've got stepped. So I'm going to try and keep things brief here on the construction standpoint and hit on the high points. The switch in this light is metallic. It's an E-switch, and it makes a good amount of noise for an E-switch. It doesn't have very much travel at all. Not sure if you can see that or not. Inside, and I'll roll in some pictures here because the construction of this light is a little bit complicated. You've got a double wall construction inside the light itself to allow the E-switch to work and to give the UI its functionality. That said, it's really important to keep the tail on this light once it's set, and I'll explain why in a minute. In my copper light, they have made a design change to improve the reliability of this light. They have added an extra retaining ring, and that's why they recommend keeping this light all together and screwed down tight, is because on the first version I had here, you could unscrew the tail and the entire assembly would come apart. And there's a tiny little piece about the size of a grain of rice. The internet's kind of coined the term nubbin that would come loose, easy to lose, and without it your light doesn't work. So to remedy that, they added that extra retaining ring. The body of the light here is nicely tapered. This is a design change from the original prototype, and it's a really smart idea. It gives the pocket clip a little bit more access while allowing it to be not really stick out much more than the profile of the light. And it's something you see on higher end lights like my Boss 35. There is no knurling on the body of the light itself. Your only knurling is here on the tail and then on the head of the light. This is a two-piece design. This front part that I'm turning now, that comes off. And I've got a couple pictures of when I installed my turbo glow gasket, but it's an easy uninstall there. Underneath at the head, you've got a optic on here. You've got a Carrillo 10511 semi-clear optic. I've got a lava-colored turbo glow gasket underneath mine. You can see as stock, it's just clear. But that's a nice little customizable option you can do on this light for very inexpensive. And it's super easy to install too. FW3 series of lights was designed with modders in mind. That's why the front end comes off so easy to install different optics, swap your LEDs, things like that. To do that, there's no glue in this light at all. That combined with the goal to make this light as small as possible means this light is a little bit finicky. A good amount of people needed to troubleshoot their lights upon first getting them, especially the first batches. Several months into construction now and production, so these have improved substantially. But there's an extensive help thread over at the Budget Light forums that I'll link to in the description below if you get this light and you have trouble with it. Personally, I've been pretty lucky. My original gray aluminum light here worked perfectly. I had zero issues with it. I did tighten the retaining ring in the head to keep it reliable, but I had had no problems with it up until then. My copper light, on the other hand, though, was a different story. I ended up having a slight problem with the location of the O-ring on the inner tube, and after 15 minutes of troubleshooting using that thread, I got it working, and it's been perfect ever since. And as I mentioned, it does have a design revision. It does have a new retaining ring in the head to keep everything together so it doesn't fall apart. That was one of people's biggest problems. Most of these problems that I've seen are usually fixable, but there's also been a couple bad LEDs reported in the first wave of lights too. So I measured the overall length of the light at 93 millimeters. Maximum diameter was 25.4 millimeters. Minimum diameter on the body was 21.5 millimeters. And weight with the battery, a Sony VTC6 on the aluminum light is 98.1 grams, and the copper light with the same battery is 170.6 grams. So that copper is a lot heavier when you're looking at the numbers, and you can definitely feel the weight difference between these two. But in your pocket, I really didn't notice it. I'm a fan of copper. You've got the ability to patina, and this one's been out of my pocket, or in my pocket, I should say, for week and a half or so. You can see it's starting to develop a nice patina on here. It's not been real hot, and I've been using the light a decent amount. Some of that rubs off fairly easy too. I'm excited to see what this looks like over time. So how does it carry? In watching the light develop over the last 2 years, I was part of the vocal minority asking for a deep carry option clip. So far, one hasn't been made, but you keep hearing rumors of that. But after carrying both lights here for a while, I don't know that it really needs it. The clip is pretty nicely put on here. Its retention's good, it's stiff, and I didn't have any trouble. A little bit more of the light sticks out of my pocket than I want, but that was okay. I don't often carry an 18650 light with me, but the FW3A series has been the exception. For me, its shortness and diameter here really makes for a nice carry. You can attach a lanyard here at the very tip, in the middle if you do want to do something chunkier like paracord, or there at the top. So a couple comparisons of lights you probably already know or might have. I've got the MSR D4 here. Lengthwise, they're very similar, with the FW3A just coming in a hair shorter. The clip on the D4 here is so-so. I really prefer the clip on the FW3A, and I just prefer to carry the FW3A series of lights more than I do the D4. Diameter is a little bit smaller, as you can see here, and there's no button module there to hit. And here is an Olight S2R Baton 2 light. The S2R2 is a little shorter, sorry, a little bit longer. It's a single emitter, so it's a little bit narrower in diameter. Similar lights in overall kind of form factor. So the FW3A series of lights is available with a number of emitters. Banggood currently has 4 of them. They have the 2 Cree XPL options at 5000 and 6500K producing 2800 lumens each, and a Nisha 219 version at 4000K producing roughly 1600 lumens. And then you've got the SST20 producing at 4000K, which is one of the options I have here, producing somewhere between those two. It's not quite as bright as the XPL highs, but isn't as dim as the Nisha options. I went for the SST20 here in my copper light. It's a good neutral emitter. I've reviewed it and looked at it on other lights. I like that high CRI, and I like that neutral white. On my aluminum white here, I did something a little bit unconventional for me. I went with the warm white XPL option that was at 3300K. You can get that over at Neil's Gadgets and possibly other retailers, but Banggood doesn't have them. And thanks to that Carrillo 10507 optic, beam patterns for a triple are really good. You've got a nice hot center, and it's fairly even on spill. Throws easily past 200 meters, as you'll see in my night shots, and heat is considerable on this light, especially for its high outputs. Runtimes and outputs on this light are basically what you should expect for a high performance hot rod like this with a limited amount of thermal mass. You have high mode, and then you have a very limited momentary turbo. And here's a graph that shows what 1 minute on turbo looks like, and we can see after 20 seconds it steps down to 2/3 relative output. It almost starts stepping down immediately. You have that much heat output. Normal mode starts to ramp down fairly quickly and stabilizes after about 9 minutes, but you can see it's considerably less output at the time. Long term, this light sits at about 40% relative output, well past that 200-minute mark, and overall runtime in this light is 100% thermally driven due to its mass and only having air to cool it. That said, your battery here matters quite a bit too. You definitely want to be using a high drain battery, something easily capable of 12-15 amps is sufficient. The light does have low voltage protection on board, so running unprotected batteries is fine and recommended for best performance. But in my testing, I couldn't get an exact voltage because the light runs in such a low output mode when the battery power gets low. I ended up shutting it off after 12 hours because the battery is still going. So this light is using Toy Keeper's Android UI, and it's one of my favorites available and has a ton of options, and I meant to print a picture and bring with me. In the default mode, I've got it here in my copper light, and it's a ramping UI. So we can see here it ramps up, and it flashes when we're at top output. You can double click then to go to that momentary high. And that ramping is great because it allows you to get to the exact voltage you want. You just press and hold, and the light comes down. You stop, press and hold again, it goes up. It's very intuitive and really easy to get a hang of, I think. The other option you have in that normal UI mode is what I've got this light in, and you can see the tint differences between those two. But this is stepped output, so it's similar to ramping, but it's stepped. Instead of being a smooth continuous, it just kind of steps up and down. The light has thermal control that you can configure, as well as beacon mode as 5 other types of strobe, including candle, party, and lightning storm. And to access these, you double press and then hold. So you've got several different modes here. In the strobe and blinky, you've got some strobe, fast strobe, party mode. So this is party mode, I believe. Fast strobe. We've got 2 different modes here. And while I explain this, I'll let you watch these. On the left, I've got what's called thunderstorm or lightning mode. And on the right, which is a little hard to see because it's brighter, it's candle mode. In candle mode, the light kind of flickers slowly like it's a candle kind of blowing in the wind. I'll lay this one down so you can kind of see it move over time here. Candle and lightning modes are my personal favorites. How practical these flashing modes are could be a point where you could argue, but I like that they're present and it makes things fun. Due to how you access these strobe modes, I'd not call the light a tactical UI. As tactical lights, you'd have to remember exactly how many presses to get. You have to double press and hold once and then click like 4 times or 6 times to get to different modes of strobe. That's just not very convenient. Some other things here, 4 clicks gives you lockout and the light kind of flashes there. And in lockout, the light works as momentary in low only. 4 clicks again unlocks the light. Or what my preference is just to unscrew the head just a little bit, then it doesn't work. You can activate momentary mode, but you have to unscrew the light to get a full reset. And click 6 modes from off gives you Muggle mode, which is a really great name because what it does is it limits the light's output and gives you the ramped UI. And this would be great if you want to hand this light off to somebody younger or to someone that doesn't really understand higher end flashlights. Personally, I find this UI to be easy to use for what you want to do most often, i.e. ramping or stepped ramping, but it's a little more complex and you can get lost in those other modes because you won't access them as much, and there's a lot of clicks to remember. I should note that not all the FW3As are coming out with the latest version of firmware on them. It's relatively easy to flash your own firmware, and you only need a computer and an inexpensive programmer and some wires. If this is something you'd be interested in having me demonstrate on video, let me know in the comments below and I'll add it to my list of future videos to make. So there are a lot of mods available for this light. The first and easiest are probably the turbo glow gaskets, which I have here in my copper light. I've got the lava color and you can see it's red. And what this is a really nice glow in the dark. I've got a nighttime shot here that I'll roll in to kind of show you what it looks like. I think it's really neat. I'll probably end up buying a blue or a green one for my aluminum light and maybe some others as well. There are mods you can buy the same turbo glow gasket material to replace this button here with many different colors. I've seen people flame anodize this as well. You've got people swapping in different optics, different LEDs, a ton of different options here. You can also get a sapphire lens for the light, which is kind of fun too. Since the light doesn't have any glue in it, it's easy to take apart. It's just a little bit complicated to assemble again. You can also flash firmware on this light if you're a developer, or if you just want to take one of the other firmwares that are available for this chipset, you can do that. So for me, the pros are this is a nice value for what you're getting with a wide variety of materials and colors to choose from. You have many different colors of aluminum. You've got the gray, blue, purple, an olive green, and potentially others. You've got material choices such as aluminum, copper, titanium copper blend, and potentially others. While this just started as one light, it's spawned into an entire family of different LED choices, material choices, and a single emitter version, a version that takes 21700 batteries, and probably more. And I like that it's highly customizable with a lot of materials and emitter choices, and it carries pretty well in the pocket. The cons for me are this is a little bit of a fiddly light. The BLF editions, the decision was made to not glue anything for easier modding, and the result is you sometimes just have to play with this light after getting it to make it work 100%. I had my problem on my copper light that I explained. I was able to get it fixed pretty easily. My aluminum light had zero issue. It was just kind of the luck of the draw. While I appreciate this being as small as possible, that also means not much thermal mass for heat dissipation. And with a triple LED producing this much output, that means it gets hot. And from tail to head, it can get really hot. You can configure this in the firmware, and I'd recommend you doing that when you get this light. My conclusion is, for me, this is the enthusiast light of 2019. It wasn't a surprise since most of the development happened on the forums and is open. I don't think anyone anticipated how popular this light would be despite having tons of pre-orders. There's just so many different versions. There's something for everybody here. It's really amazing to me how many people and volunteers give their countless hours away to produce a flashlight for the community, and while not getting paid. The hard work really shows on this one. I have a couple different BFL design lights and I don't regret any of them. If you're a flashlight enthusiast, collector, or EDC community member and you don't have an FW3 series of light at this point, I'd strongly encourage you to pick one up today. You won't regret it. As I mentioned before, I personally don't EDC a ton of 18650 lights in my daily activities, typically due to their larger size. That said, this FW3 series of lights is the exception. That tapered body really makes a big difference in the carry, so does that short overall length. While I would prefer a little bit deeper carry clip, as I've indicated before, or the included clip is pretty good. The modding capacity of this light is also very high and appealing. There's a ton of different people doing lots of different things and good aftermarket support as well, including glow buttons, glow gaskets, drilled tritium optics, and more. Below in the description, I'll have a link to the different versions of the light, many colors of aluminum, titanium, copper, etc. that the FW3 series of lights are currently available in that Banggood is carrying, as well as the turbo glow gaskets that I've got in my copper light. And if you're a flashlight enthusiast, collector, or EDC community member and you don't have this light at this point, I'd strongly encourage you to pick one up today. It might not be your only EDC light, but it's one you'll have a ton of fun with at a very affordable price, and it'll impress your friends, and for its money, it's a great value. I'd recommend it. As always, guys, thanks for watching this video. If you have any comments, leave them in the description below. I'll do my best to answer them, and let me know what you think of the FW3A.